Good morning. This is Richard Cheng with the Sativa Segment, episode 32. Hey, Bill.
Hey, how's it going?
Listen, I'm really looking forward to our discussion, but before we get into it, I'm going to say that this episode is fueled by Ritter Spencer Cheng. It's a law firm based here in Dallas, Texas, and it's a full-service business law firm with an entire broad, sweeping suite of services. If you want to know a little bit more about the law firm, go to ritterspencercheng.com. Bill, you came all the way from where?
From New York, Long Island, New York, Great Neck.
Goodness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Quite the traveler you are. What made you want to fly all the way from New York to come see me?
Well, I mean, I'm just interested in the cannabis world. I have been for probably my entire life, my late teens. I've been a cannabis advocate since before it was a cool thing, right?
Yeah.
And, I finally got a chance in my career where now I can work with the people that I want to work with. And I truly do want to help the industry, because it's close to my heart.
That's awesome, man. Hey, I'm really glad you flew down, and thank you for making the time, really. And thank you for the T-shirt that you got me.
Yes,
it's in a box or it's in a bag, and I don't know what it says, but it'll be like a box of chocolates. I'll figure it out later on.
It's all green grows your green, baby. It's just a shirt.
Okay, so let's start off with that. Tell me about that saying. You told me about that saying earlier.
Yes, sir. Well,
our green grows.
Our green grows your green.
Okay,
that's our company slogan, and it works in any industry, but. God gave me that idea when we started getting into strictly cannabis lending, and it fits, and it's a play on words, and we're very big on media and making people laugh, and trying to build some relationships and help some business owners in the cannabis sector.
Now, the words I want to make people laugh and money and finance, they don't usually go hand in hand.
Right.
So help me understand what your company does, which your company is called BizFundsHub.
Yes, sir. BizFundsHub.
Okay.
So we're a capital broker out of New York, and we are the hub where business owners can come and shop for working capital resources. We came up with this because when you really think about it, if you own a business and you need capital, where do you go? Nobody knows the answer to that. So getting the word out and getting exposure for BizFundsHub is to let people know that if you need working capital, we are your source.
So how did you get into cannabis?
Oof. Well, long story short,
because you were in trucking before, or you were in. I'm sorry, I take that back. You were in you were with a company that did capital raising. A lot of it was for the transportation and trucking industry.
Yep, transportation, trucking. I mean, every other business besides cannabis.
Yeah.
But previously, before that, myself and my staff, we were all working in financial services. I was on the advisory side. All of my employees are former registered reps with FINRA, NASA.
Yeah, I saw that you have all your series.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you know what it was? I got bored. I didn't have I never had a real mentor, so for me, learning through sales, learning through mortgage originations, financial services, it actually made me into the mentor. And, that's how my crew looks at me now. We got into cannabis because we were writing loans for small businesses, and we started getting a few referrals from other attorneys for cannabis deals. And then it kind of just morphed into we could actually help this industry.
Now, was this at your prior company when this happened?
Yeah, this was at my prior company. That was the seed. And then one day I just kind of thought I could do it better and took that leap of faith. BizFundsHub was an accident. It was like a joke. And I bought the website from GoDaddy, and then 6 months later, I actually put it in play.
Let me ask you this. At your prior company, when this first occurrence happened, or this first opportunity in cannabis happened, did your boss or did the company balk at it? Did they not want you to do it? Or tell me the sentiments of how they felt about that.
Yep. So, as you know, the capital resources for cannabis as a whole are very limited. So,
it still is.
To get a one-off on that and then find the lender who will do a cannabis deal, it was almost like a circle. So, that was the leading factor for me to say, you know what, I could do this because it's an untapped industry. There aren't people that are prospecting for cannabis clients, unless you're in cannabis. So that being said, there's one other name in lending on the cannabis side, who I'd rather not mention, but
Okay.
ideally we would like to compete with the big dogs and eventually have our own fund and give, better rates and better terms and, some easier products that the cannabis industry desperately needs. For example, one of them is invoice factoring. Every cannabis company is on a net 30, but nobody ever pays. So that was one of the things, or doesn't pay on time, excuse me. But that was one of the things that we knew we had to address, because if people can't collect their invoices, then now we're just waiting for money to come in, and all of a sudden, right, you just see the decline. If you're not able to collect your money, you're going to have no money. On the lending side, we took a special interest in cultivation, because if you don't have the cultivation, you don't have anything.
Are you familiar with factoring?
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm just curious, and I don't know the answer to this, but is there a lot of factoring in cannabis?
There isn't, but there will be now. Again, this is on like a granular level. So I'm definitely a lead by example guy. So I'm in the trenches with my guys every day, and we speak to these professionals all day. And these are the issues that, they bring up to us, and it's a commonality between it, So we've tried to address all of those issues to help. Because the only other thing out there is, somebody slinging expensive cash, and a lot of these companies, they can't hold it. It's.
Now, you're out of New York.
Yes, sir.
Are most of the people who come to you, are they New York based, or are they from
all over? Yeah. I mean, we're nationwide. A lot of the people that come to us is people from New Mexico now.
Really?
Yeah. Things are a little bit
difficult. Is that a growing market over there that you're seeing that need capital?
Well, it's not really growing markets per se. They've issued tons of licenses, and it's getting oversaturated. So New Mexico, Colorado, California, those are the states that we look at as like leading indicators to see what's going to happen now on the East Coast in the next 3, 4, or 5 years.
Are you getting any from Texas?
Well, we do, because they just had some legislation that was shot down, if I'm not mistaken.
There's a lot of legislation.
Well, I mean, Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, they're tough with the laws, But what was that most recent? There was something in courts recently where I think it had to do with like MSO capability, which is multi-state organization, right? Like if you live in California, you get California marijuana, right? You can't get California marijuana in New York unless that company has a multi-state organization.
Well, the ones that are in Texas, the two biggest ones that's at issue is one, Senate Bill 3, that was obviously in an effort by Dan Patrick to get rid of all intoxicating cannabinoid consumer products, right? That's one. Yeah. And it got vetoed. Yeah. And of course, I believe just earlier this week on July 21st, there was a special session. And funny you're asking me about this, because there was just actually a publication that came out this morning about how Greg Abbott has outlined what his approach is on how to regulate, and that's the keyword, regulate, right?
Yeah,
instead of allowing the bill to go through. But what's interesting is concurrently, they also Senator Perry out of Lubbock, he also presented Senate Bill 5, which was essentially a mirroring effect of Senate Bill 3, which it passed the Senate State Affairs Committee. 10-0 actually, and it's just kind of sitting there. I don't know what's going to happen, but as of right now, Senate Bill 3 has not passed. And the other big one is House Bill 46, which is the expansion, which did pass, by the way, which was the expansion of the medical cannabis program here in Texas, which was fairly limited. So those are probably the two biggest ones here in Texas. That's going on.
We've also had a lot of medical in Texas. Are they having problems converting into retail or adding that retail license?
Well, so there are only 3 licensees. Since 2016, we've had, I always call it 2.5 rounds. There was a round in the middle that only lasted I think 3 weeks. Wow. And it was kind of a joke of a round. The last one was, I believe, April of 2023. It ended April 28th of 2023, and over 200 applicants applied for it, and they've issued nothing. Yeah, and that's interesting because House Bill 46 actually compels DPS to issue up to 12 licenses.
Wow.
And of course, the law doesn't go into effect until September 1st.
Right.
But what I think, obviously, I think that's to meet the needs of the expansion of the number of qualifying conditions. Because as of September 1st, as you may or may not know, they've added a number of other conditions that would qualify an individual for teacup, which is like one of them being chronic pain. Well, we didn't have that before. A lot of people have chronic pain.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are all interesting law that's going on here in Texas. But let's shift back to you.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about Texas or me.
All right.
Let's talk about you. So you essentially you grew up in New York.
Yep.
And you're New York based.
Oh, yeah.
But your clientele is all over, and you essentially you aggregate capital for people who need it.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about who usually comes to you. Are they usually retailers? Are they usually bigger organizations? Because I would imagine by the time they get to you, Bill, it's usually because traditional funding is not an option for them.
Yep.
Or a traditional financial institution has either had is either exercising their policy to not lend to companies in the cannabis industry, or they simply just don't qualify.
Right. Right.
So tell me about who usually comes to you.
Well, so the people that usually come to us are cultivators.
Okay.
Again, we have a special interest in the cultivation and the growers, just because without the growers, you have nothing, right? You have nothing down the line, nothing up the line. We do a lot of outreach, though. We spent the first 6 months of this venture really like reaching out to as many people and as many states as we possibly could. We do a lot of marketing, a lot of email marketing. We get a lot of responses from that kind of stuff, social media. But the type of people that come to us are the people who are looking to expand that can't just work harder or, make more, right? Like there has to be some kind of buffer or some kind of extra involved to expand. The other thing is our cash is normally for operational uses.
Okay.
When you're looking to expand, assets are needed. When you're looking to purchase assets, cash is needed.
Yeah.
Right. There are no lenders out there, especially now, who are going to finance, real estate ventures for cannabis companies. There are a few out there, but again, for an average Joe, for somebody who has a cannabis dispensary or has, their own harvest, they don't know where to go. Most business owners don't know where to go. And that's where the idea of BizFundsHub came from. We want to be the hub that people come to when they need to shop for working capital resources. And we have all those boxes.
Now, are most of these businesses, is it mostly in the hemp industry, or is it adult use, or is it medical?
We got the whole kaleidoscope. We have the whole spider web. So vertically integrated, a lot of companies that are, and companies that we speak to who are not vertically integrated. Yeah, that is now our process for them. And what vertically integrated means, it basically means from seed to retail, all in one shop. Yeah. Right. So, and that leads me into another part of this too, is what we're seeing on the ground level is there are about 10 or 12 companies in every state that do over $10 million in annual revenue. The rest are just fighting it out. So if as managers, cannabis company owners are not putting the things in place now to set themselves up for the future, they're going to get left in the dust, and that's really what we try to do is we try to get who's planning on being the 7-Eleven of dispensaries, who's planning to be vertically integrated and have their own brand, and then who's just hanging around, Right. And then we're also, my father-in-law is opening up his first dispensary. Okay. I got roped into it, just all of a sudden over time. It was just, but, he's a great guy, sound businessman. And it's on the border of Queens and Long Island, on Long Island. Nassau County is the main county. They opted out. So now you have Suffolk County and you have Queens County. So our store is going to be right on the border of Queens County and Nassau County.
What are you going to sell?
Well, it's a dispensary. Okay. So that's another thing that I've been doing too is I've been, scoping out different companies that I'd like to have on the shelves. My father-in-law asked me, he said, listen, OCM, they need a cannabis connoisseur. Do you know anybody? I was like, yeah, hold on one second. Yep, it's me. So I mean, like the point of what I'm trying to say is I look to the companies that I want, to engage with. How I started getting online with a lot of these cannabis companies in the beginning is after I went to the dispensary, I'd take a picture of the back of the packaging, and then you'd get the trade name, but you'd also get the corporate name, and then I would look them up, find them, and try to do some business. Try to make some orders with them. I want to have the products that I enjoy, and I also want to have the products from like professional athletes, movie stars, like that's the kind of product that I'd like to have in there. Yeah. It's all been a work in progress, about 40 days out.
Well, first of all, I applaud you for doing business with family. So, I mean, that's first and foremost. Yeah. But let's talk about the different borrowers that you engage with. Sure. Because obviously, if you're dealing with hemp, there's a different set of legalities than versus, say, you're lending money to adult use cannabis, right? And especially with you're lending money across states. How does that work in terms of risk factor, or are the parties that you're getting capital from? What type of disclosures do you make in terms of, hey, we're lending money to an adult use cannabis company in Wisconsin or another state?
Well, the best part about being a broker is we don't take on any of that responsibility. Okay. We go to big box lenders, non-depository lenders who are in the business to seed companies. So we really don't have to deal with any of those compliance issues. That's one of the big reasons why we got out of financial services, because everything was compliance. I mean, right? When it comes to the types of clients that we get, sometimes we get people who have started a few months ago, and sometimes we get some companies doing $12 million a year with 2 warehouses they would pledge as an asset. We don't use assets as funding mechanisms themselves, but we will definitely use the collateral for those purposes. The other part of this whole thing is a lot of these smaller companies or newer companies, they haven't accumulated assets yet. So we have both asset-based and secured lending, and then we also have unsecured cash flow lending.
So when they have assets, are you securing their assets, or does the security flow upstream to the original assets? Okay. Yeah. And how do you guys get paid? Do you guys give, obviously you don't have to tell me about how much you get paid, but how do you get paid for your work?
Well, so with each lender that we deal with, there's a volume scale based on loan amounts. Yeah. So it's either 10%, 12%, and it's different bogeys based on the amount of loans.
That's right. Yeah. It's no different than business brokerage, right? I mean, the bigger the target and the bigger the purchase price, the smaller the fee, and then it goes in reverse layman's, right? Yep, exactly. And so and that's what I suspected, but so it would. Obviously, the bigger the loan, the bigger the bigger the amount that you're aggregating, the bigger the payout. I would say, in general, right? Yep. Is it hard having those discussions with the people who pay you, or is there a lot of back and forth?
No, I mean the best part about it is our fee doesn't affect the borrower in any way.
I mean the lender. Like when you go to the lender and say, "Hey, I want to take X amount of fees." What is the pushback like?
Oh no. It's based on loan amounts for the month. So if I do $2 million with lender Y, I will get 10%. If I do $3 million, I'll get 12%. Right. So it's a sliding scale based on the loan amounts. It doesn't affect the client's rate. They don't have to come out of pocket for anything. Yeah. So basically, we're providing a service that the client technically doesn't need to pay for as well.
Do you have to be like registered? Do you actually need to be series registered, or do you need any type of licensing to be a capital broker?
Not in the state of New York.
Really?
Yeah, not in the state of New York. I mean, I have the registrations anyway. But not in the state.
Yeah, because your qualifications are pretty impressive in terms of you have all your series, 1 through 20 or whatever it is, right? Yeah. Or 1 through 100. But based on what you're explaining to me and how it works, because you're not regulated in the way that you do aggregate capital, I'm just wondering, like, do you even need stuff like that?
No, I mean, it's just to give us. To give us some credibility,
Yeah, so honest. I mean, I think it's a fair statement to say that going to brokerage A versus going to brokerage U or BizFundsHub, you're probably going to be more qualified because you do have that qualification, that background. Whereas the original, broker A may not, it can be any Joe Schmo off the street.
And it is. You know, and that's really
where I was going with it.
Yeah, like that's the whole thing behind me going out on my own and knowing that I could do it better because even myself and my entire crew, we take that fiduciary role very, very serious. The other part of it is if we're doing financial planning for people with money, why not do it for business owners who need more of that? There's a lot of business owners out there, like especially cultivators. They are so good at their craft and they are so good at their art. You ask them to put a balance sheet together and they're looking at you like I got 10 heads, right? So like our role here is more of like an advisory. We always have a plan of action no matter what financing avenue we take, because the planning aspect is what ensures the success at the end. Because it's called working capital. So if it's not working to make you more revenue and more capital, then you're not using it the right way. And it's not the money that makes people default on loans, it's the managers,
Are there any penalties with when you lend people? Let's say if you lend $1 million, right? And they don't use it for the right reasons, as you say. Are there terms and conditions as part of that loan that there are penalties that they incur because they don't use it for the right reasons?
Not the use. They just want to be paid.
Okay.
Right. So, the money is issued according to a plan.
Yeah.
And what makes the alternative.
So it sounds like it's more of a plan as opposed to binding terms and conditions. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, the other thing that makes us different is if you have a plan and you have a use of funds that's going to generate revenue and you can 3, 4, 5 times the cost of capital, that's a home run in any other business.
Right.
So the biggest challenge that we faced is it's almost like if you're not involved in the industry and people don't know you, they still think you're a narc, right? Like for whatever reason it is, it's just that stigma.
Well, it's carried over from generations of being operating underground, right?
Exactly.
That's so interesting to me. What type of metrics do you use to say, hey, you're an appropriate borrower? And what are some grounds for you to say, hey, listen, I love to help you. You obviously were turned down by 3 other lenders. I can't even help you. What is the basement for you in that situation?
Well, listen, we like to identify good clients that we want to continue to do business with. So the indicators is profitability, number 1. Number 2 is the manager. Who is this person? Who's going to be managing these funds? Because it's not the entity, it's the manager. The other part of it is the consistency. So if people have fluctuating revenue, there's no real way for lenders to say, you know what, he'll pay us back, right? And one of the things that that cannabis industry professionals, about 30% of them, it's just that business mindset just doesn't hold. So for them to think of like, capital for extra this, extra that, they just feel like they have to like do more sales, right? Which is like next to impossible. It's like working harder, right?
Okay.
So the only real way to get yourself ahead in this business, to make more money, to keep more of your own money, is to use working capital from somebody else. The other thing is a lot of people are still self-funding. If you're putting all of your cash at risk and you're $200,000, $300,000 in inventory every single month, that's not a recipe for anything good. That's almost like a recipe for failing. So the lines of credit for inventory that we offer, the invoice factoring that we offer, and now we actually came online with a lender who will finance harvest. So this was a lender that was originally doing just farms and decided to take on cannabis. So the way it works is as long as they have a proven track record and they have the financial metrics, we have lenders that will give them the money, to seed, harvest, and they'll get paid back upon sale at retail.
Now, are you finding like the cultivation side, the harvesting side, that obviously this industry is I always call it it's a very supply chain driven industry, right? Yep. You have your upstream, midstream, and downstream. Downstream being more on the retail consumer side. But are you finding that the more upstream businesses like your cultivators, is it pretty capital intensive because of how much goes into it?
Well, it's capital and risk. because if somebody loses a harvest,
I'm talking about in comparison to like say downstream, right?
Oh.
So, you've probably lend to a broad spectrum of borrowers. Are you finding that the borrowed amount is lower downstream versus upstream?
No, it's pretty much the same.
Really? Okay.
I mean, cannabis professionals, they're going to take what they qualify for, and when we talk about the different amounts that they have as options, we go through that cost analysis on month 1, month 2. I mean, if the numbers make sense, it makes sense. So the cultivators need the money more than anybody because that is the riskiest part of the whole thing. A dispensary, not so risky. So to answer that question, the more upstream definitely need more funding than, let's say, a downstream on a dispensary. Dispensaries, we write a lot of revolving lines of credit. So that
and that's what I mean is that it does sound like the upstream people need more capital, but the amount that you actually lend may be relatively the same, but just in different formats. Whereas downstream, you're like you say, it's more revolving capital. They may not use it all, but it's available to them. Whereas upstream, they're full steam ahead. They really actually need the capital right then and there.
Yes.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
Now, are you looking at other services as well? Because you mentioned factoring.
Yep.
Tell me what that's like, because, and of course, this podcast is really for education purposes for the industry. That's why I created it. Tell the audience really what factoring really is and how it benefits them. Because to me, factoring is when you have an issue with cash flow. You need working capital, you need cash flow, but you may not get 100% of your invoices, but you may get 60 cents on the dollar, 70 cents on the dollar, to where at least it keeps your business afloat.
Yeah. Well,
tell me about that.
Sure. So I guess the invoice factoring has been around for 30 years in every single industry. And what it is any cannabis company that is issuing invoices, especially on the cultivation side, the dispensaries and things like that. Industry-wide, everyone is supposed to be on a net 30, which means paid within 30 days.
That's right.
70% of the industry does not pay on time for whatever reason it is. So,
hey, you know what? It's okay because that's the same with legal services. People don't pay their invoices on time.
Factoring. So, I mean, in essence, what it will do is it'll give any company access to their billable invoices. And our companies do anywhere from 75 to 90% upfront.
Okay.
And then when the difference is collected, the merchant gets the difference minus the 1 to 1.5% fee of the total invoice. So it's by far the number one choice and the most cost-effective choice to start with. And then everything moves down from there. But the point of that is instead of having to wait 60, 90 days plus, a company will advance you on that invoice and then wait for it to be collected before they take their fee, with you getting the difference. So in essence, it avoids the borrowing stigma because it is their revenue. They're just getting it advanced.
Right. And there's different forms of factoring with recourse, without recourse. And so how do you guys usually do it?
Yeah, I mean, these are all done with recourse, especially the factoring. The unsecured lending, I mean, very little recourse when it comes to that, because if a company goes out of business, all the lender's going to do is file a UCC and it'll just follow the owner around, for a long time. But that's why the unsecured is so risky, because there really is there's no backing, there's very little recourse. But from a business owner's standpoint, if you're using someone else's money in that aspect to hedge your own money's risk, it makes more sense to do it that way, Plus you get the write-offs. And, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the tax implications for, the cannabis industry, but, the federal 280E law, where it doesn't allow them to deduct expenses from their federal tax
with exception
return.
To COGS, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And technically, some of our products are advances on revenue, and it can be considered cost of goods sold through that because you're advancing it and then getting it paid back.
Oh,
yeah.
So if it falls under the COGS umbrella under 280E, what you're saying is, in other words, is that's a tax deduction for the cannabis businesses. That's interesting.
It's
I
one of
mean,
the only few. If you know, I mean, yeah. So I mean,
well, I'm not a tax attorney nor am I a CPA. I can barely count to 10, but you know, but I do know that that's a very prohibitive parameter, obviously, and you know that's obviously one of the discussions is that if cannabis ever gets rescheduled to a Schedule 3. The 280 it goes away.
Yes.
And so, you know, as you know, a lot of cannabis businesses, they're burdened not only do they have to be profitable, but they have to be that much more profitable because of the lack of taxes deductions.
Absolutely.
So that's good to know that, you know, what you're offering, it does, you know, it does fall under the tax deduction bracket.
Yeah.
Now, I think earlier we were talking, just when we were chit-chatting, like the world of alternative investments and private lending has just exploded.
Yes.
I do know that in the last number of years, private equity firms have set up their own credit funds in a sense. Do you ever tap into those resources or?
See, those are the big boxes. You know, those are those aren't people that I mean, we have private credit, we have venture capital, smaller venture capital companies.
Okay.
We've seen the boom in private credit. We do have you know, connections and resources in that as well. But to be honest with you, there aren't that many companies out there that qualify for private credit. You know, if you're not doing $10 million or more in annual revenue, and you got to figure there's only about 10 in each state, 10, 12 in each state doing over 10 million. So the private credit thing hasn't come up a few times. You know, we've gotten some successful deals done. A lot for, you know, acquiring other dispensaries around the area.
Yeah.
You know, I had that one guy in Massachusetts who you're only allowed to have 3 licenses altogether, but now has applied for licenses in his son's name. So that might come up with us in the future. I had emailed you about that a while ago, but yeah, that we'll see the private credit thing on our side more once it becomes federally descheduled, because then it'll come back, you know, and it'll come back to this industry with a full, you know, like a full pound.
Yeah, so either one of two things need to happen, right? Either the lending side need to lower that threshold, or there needs to be more higher performers, right? One of the two needs to happen. You just got me thinking because, like here in Texas, it's very capital intensive to get a business going under TCUP, the Texas Capacity Use Program. You know, when you apply, the application's like a novel. Yeah. There's like 12 sections, right?
I hope you give up.
And you know, you need to submit the application with like architecture plans, you know, blueprints and everything else, and HIPAA program and everything else. And I always tell businesses, because I get a lot of calls, a lot of emails saying, "Hey, I want to get into this." Like, do you have $15-20 million to get into this and to thrive? They're like, well, no. Who has 15-20 million?
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, it's really unfortunate because there's a pretty high barrier of entry into this market. I can't speak for every market, but this market, you're talking about vertically integrated licenses. The license that's issued under TCUP, you can grow, you can develop, you can manufacture, and then of course you can retail. So, and I'm just thinking out loud here is like a company like yours may be a resource to people who otherwise would be prohibitive to fall under a state license, state sponsored program because of the intense capital. And now they may be able to with going through you.
Yeah. I mean, there's some municipalities out there that require 24 months worth of operating expenses before they'll even approve you to open up your location. You know, so that's been another thing that we've been dealing with too, and having to get people quick cash so that they can provide the asset reserves needed so that they can get the board meeting or the town meeting, get approved, and then, you know, open their doors. We're actually going through that now in New York and Queens County, New York County.
Are you still seeing like a lot of the not in my backyard attitude in these little towns?
You know what? I see that in the industry total, because that's how we all are. You know, like nobody wants us telling us what we want to do. And I mean, like the same people like strong-headed like me, like you, I'm assuming part of the reason why you came an attorney is because you don't want people telling you what to do. Right? But we've been we've been seeing a lot of different trends, and we've met a lot of different people in this industry, and there's the same commonality. The other part of it is, we're in the works of developing our own fund through private family offices. It's still in the beginning stages, but we also see that there is a huge opportunity for somebody to come in and undercut by a few percentage points and take over 50, 60% of the market share for lending in cannabis.
Do you ever attend any of these like town meetings? And I'm really asking, how do you market your services on a local level?
Yeah. So we're big on events.
Like what kind of events?
So this past Saturday, went to an event at a ranch in the Hamptons.
Okay.
I won't give the company, but their brand is the Ladies. Okay. So it's a Hamptons grown, so Long Island grown, and they had an event out at the ranch, which is enormous, by the way, with art from an artist called Nova, who did like replicas of the statues on Easter Island. I mean, all of these like huge structures, sculptures everywhere on a 94-acre piece of land. So Heirloom was there from the drinks. We had Hybrid Theory, which is another like up and coming cultivator. There was plenty of samples and stuff. It was a good time for industry professionals to meet. And, those are the crowds that I'm trying to roll in. Chip, the owner of the farm, he's more of like a mentor to me. And once I had the harvest funding platform, he's going to be a big help, in getting that as a driving force for more exposure on that, going forward. The other events that are on for 2026 is CannaCon. And then we want to be at Bazinga. We missed last year because things were so busy, and you know how it is when you got to just ride the waves.
But there's so many cannabis events.
Oh yeah,
you can. I usually at the beginning of the year I get this comprehensive list of events, and there's like 10 different CannaCons, and there's like 10 different NECANs, right? And so I would think for you really kind of have to pick and choose how to allocate your resources going to the right events.
Yep.
Do you do much social media? Is there much of a social media presence for your
we have
company?
a pretty big following on Instagram. Obviously LinkedIn is for the professionals. I don't really use Facebook anymore. I just kind of feel like it's losing its luster, to be honest with you. And social media for me, it's really just to entertain people. And get them to look and see who you are, to visit your website, right? So our social media is kind of revolving now around pop culture. Just like you, I'm a big pop culture guy. We got some pretty cool stuff coming out.
I know you said you've noticed my t-shirts.
Yes,
so
sir.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir, man. Yeah, so that's how I knew what to bring you. Give it, somewhat. But the media for us is 10-second videos, 10, 12-second videos.
Yep.
If you guys check out BizFundsHub _ on Instagram, you'll see some of the videos where we use the A-Team's theme song as an intro.
That's great.
We have a segment that we tested last week called Spot the Scam. Right. So like if somebody's telling, and it'll be like a little video of like something people have heard before. And then we use a very creative voice to, to say something like, well, it was at this point when he knew he was being scammed. And then it cuts out to our theme song. So that theme song, I really like using the laughter, the videos, pop culture. That's really how we get out there, because to be honest with you, we want to be known as the company that can get anything done, but also the guys that you would want to go and have a beer with after, right? I mean, we're not transactional. We try to treat everybody like they're our mothers, and it's worked out for us so far. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. I'm glad that you're taking a very somewhat of an aggressive approach with social media and all the different outlets that you're putting your name out into. Are you looking to expand your services at all in the near future, or are you thinking about bringing on, new partners that can really scale your company? Because your company is pretty new. It's only about 1.5 years old. What are your expansion, your growth plans long term?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked that, because I'm I'm at a point where it's either I go big and have a big office, or I automate everything and use the tools that are available through AI and different platforms like that, and maybe one day merge with a bigger box. My personal goal with this company is to be the fund eventually. That's really where it all comes down to, like, my goals and my dreams for myself, but also on a bigger scale, if we can provide better terms, better products than that's currently out there, I think that would be the end game, and that would be a win for everybody, because now you have another option that is cheaper, more tax efficient. I mean, the possibilities are endless. That's where the help comes in, and that's where we really do want to help. So, again, end game is to be the fund and make it so that cannabis companies can survive and grow and flourish and have a trusted funding partner, that they can use on a daily basis,
Okay.
Yeah.
And, as we wrap up here, because we're getting to the tail end of the session, tell the audience, are you looking to expand in terms of providing lending to other industries?
Yes.
Because cannabis isn't the only vice,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's, people are looking at psychedelics,
Yeah.
kratom.
Yeah.
There's ketamine clinics being opened up. I mean, those are all controlled substances. Not kratom, but the others.
Yeah.
What does that look like in terms of the BizFundsHub?
Yep. Well, first of all, we do service all industries.
Okay.
At this point, we just market to the cannabis industry. We get a lot of referrals for a lot of different industries.
Okay.
But what we constantly do is constantly try to upgrade our sources. We constantly try to find more private lenders for our clients that have the assets and the higher revenue. But to answer your question, we are always looking to expand our resources, our reach, and the capabilities, that we can do. But yes, we are in every single business type, every single industry. And the psychedelics and that stuff, it definitely interests me. And, if we're on board for cannabis and we're a household name for cannabis, those resources will come along with it too. It kind of goes hand in hand, I feel like.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because it's funny. It's interesting to see the evolution of the cannabis industry, and even at conferences. 10 years ago, MG Biz didn't have a psychedelic session, but they do now.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So as I think people are seeing the overlap of these other alternative substances that have crossover, not crossover, direct crossover matters, but they have correlating and crossover issues that they both deal with, right? I would say, if you were to compare the two between cannabis and psychedelics, cannabis definitely got the raw end of the deal because it's been long stigmatized for a much longer period of time. There's more history behind that. But anyway, so tell me one statement that basically sums up what you want to accomplish in the next year.
Cool. Well, BizFundsHub wants to help all cannabis company owners simplify the search for working capital resources, and don't forget that our green grows your green.
I love that. Well, Bill, hey, this has been an awesome session. I appreciate you coming down all the way from New York. It means a lot to me, and thank you for the T-shirt. And I'm so glad you came down. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.